It was used on an automobile called the Cord, and it was made by the Cord Automobile Company, but it was used in the airplanes at American Airlines. These were the same engines that American Airlines used in their airplanes. After several years as general manager, things took an unusual turn. Mr. Cord decided he would purchase stock and eventually would have control of American Airlines, which he did. So my dad resigned out of the courtesy to the colonel who was fired as president. My dad then and the colonel bought a company that manufactured dry cleaning equipment. At that time, the company was doing okay, but the colonel as president and my dad as sales manager were about to turn this company around. They changed the name to the Bandbox Corporation. When they went to this company, they saw something that invaluable. They saw something invaluable. That's why they were able to go from business to business and be a success. They had foresight. This company had a good cleaning machine and process, but one thing they had was a patent on a machine that could reclaim cleaning solvent. In those days, you threw the solvent away after you cleaned the clothes because it was impure. But this machine used carbon tetrachloride as its cleaning solvent. And this machine would clean and extract and purify the solvent, and it could be used over and over again. Therefore, there was tremendous saving to the cleaning people. They were using the process. When they saw this, they knew they had a gold mine. That's what made this process cheaper and more efficient. The other cleaning chemicals had to be replaced very often because the solvent became contaminated, had to be discarded. The selling point was this cleaner that bought the machines could advertise 1 hour dry cleaning. And that's what they became famous for. 1 hour dry cleaning. They beat the stew out of everybody. It wasn't hard to sell this thing. So anyway, I went with my dad many times when he sold these machines, and boy, he was unbelievable. Come in there, the poor guy was barely making a living. We traveled all over Iowa, Missouri, Tennessee, all over the country. Especially in the summer, I'd go with my dad for weeks at a time. And we would go to all these little small towns and dig up a cleaner who was barely making a living. And my dad would get a hold of him, and I say this and nobody believes me. He never lost a sale. How can you never lose a sale? I'll tell you how he never lost a sale. When he approached these people, first of all, he said, you can turn this product out pressed and cleaned in 1 hour. You'll be the only one in 100 miles that can do this. You're an instant success. A few advertisements and you're in. So anyway, the cleaner says, no, I'm sorry, I already in debt and I can't afford it. And, I don't think I can do it. So my dad says, sit down. I'm going to show you a way that I can give you this equipment for nothing. There will be no charge to you. And the guy said, oh, that's impossible. There's no way you can do that. He says, well, listen to what I'm telling you. I'm going to supply you a cleaning unit, a recycling unit, a presser, and everything you need to immediately go into 1 hour dry cleaning business. So anyway, this would revolutionize the whole dry cleaning industry, and it did. So I would sit there and listen to my dad, who was third grade student. I hate people when they gotta have PhDs. He's a third grade student. So he sat down with the guy and he said, at this time, I realized the figure I'm going to tell you is way above your ability to understand. But I'm going to explain it so that you are going to end up owing nothing. Guys, they don't believe you. They're Hoosiers in Iowa, they're not going to believe you. So he says, okay, the cost of this equipment is high. The reason it's high is because it's complete. You don't have to buy another thing. It'll have everything you ever need. And it costs $2,500. And the guy almost fainted. How could he afford $2,500? This included the machine, the extractor, the purifier, and the ironing sheet stuff and everything else. So my dad went on to tell him how it could be done. And here's the following way it was done. He never lost a sale. If he's going to give you this, how can you lose a sale? He said that, how much do you spend on solvent for the present equipment you've got? He says, oh, $50 a week. You throw it away, don't you? He says, what if I could give you this machine and save you $50 a week, which you'll give to me toward the $2,500? You'll be getting this for nothing, won't you? Guy was sold. He got it for nothing. So he reused that stuff and reused it, say $50, sent the $50 in, he got it for nothing. So anyway, this machine was so phenomenal that it was put in Sears and Roebuck stores. They never had a cleaning department in there, all over the country, and they were making these things right here in St. Louis, and they did fabulous business, unbelievable. My dad was the sales manager, and he almost single-handedly did all the sales for this company. Unbelievable. I went with him. I would sit in there and I'd just go like this, and I'd say, man, you just bought some equipment. Before he started, I said, you got it free. And he did. How can you lose, huh? So anyway, they did that for quite a while, and they made a huge success. My dad made most of the sales, which was okay. He had a few salesmen on the road, but he was the primary operator because there was no way you could get out of this thing. Oh, I got one figure wrong here. It was $50 a month for solvent, not $25 a week. I should have read that. So he sent the $50 every month, and that was it. Okay, so this went on real good for quite a while. Excuse me a second. This was a good deal for sure. They actually got the equipment literally free. My dad sold many, many, many of these units, even sold them to Sears and Roebuck, as I said. This went on for many years until 1941. And in life, nothing goes on forever. Nothing. I don't care what you got. The guy that owned General Motors, he died. 6 other guys owned it, and they died. Nothing goes on forever. And that's when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, 1941. When the war started, the government of the U.S. made manufacturers that used metal to stop using metal for the duration of the war because they needed the metal for battleships and guns and whatever the hell they needed. So that was the end of the Bandbox Corporation. But even at the end, they made a good deal. There was a company called Diamond Alkali Chemical Company, one of the biggest companies in the world, and it's still there. They still make chemicals. And they supplied the solvent, Carbon Tep, to the company my dad and the colonel owned. So they went to see the Diamond Alkali people, and they said, we want to sell you all of our accounts that use carbon tetrachloride. And they got a pretty good chunk of money for that, even though it went down, right? They closed the place. They got to do it. The government says, you can't make it. It was all metal, this whole unit. You can't do it. So they closed it up. Okay, but they got a few bucks out of the selling of the cleaning fluid to the customers, right? Okay. So at this time, my dad and the Colonel Dunwoody went their separate ways. My dad went into partnership with a chemical company. See, he never had more than a week off. He always had an idea. He could walk in and get something done. So he went into a partnership with 7 guys who had owned this chemical company. That's unusual. So he was a partner too. He ran the place. The other guys just took the money. So my dad went into partnership with this company. Now, what did they think? World War II. You can't get any leather. And the Army, the Navy, and Marines all need shoes. But you can't get any leather because they're taking all the leather to the armed forces. So the chemical company came up with a substance that was a chemical shoe sole that would last longer than leather. So they started making these shoe soles for civilians. The army took all the leather, so they couldn't get it. So they substituted the leather, and they had big contracts, all over the place. And the 7 guys made a lot of money. Believe me, my dad did all the work, and well, they put up the money, so they were entitled to get the money back, right? So anyway, this went on for quite a few years. In fact, it went on until Armistice Day, 1945. And what happened then? The Army and the Navy didn't need all that leather. So the chemical leather business was not necessary, right? Okay, so what did he do? They closed up the plant. That's what they did. Now, I wish I could tell you how he met all these other people. That's part of the story. But I was too young, or I was in the service, or I was somewhere, and I never knew what was going on. Okay, so the chemical company goes bye-bye. What's next? He meets another guy named Joe Steinbach. Joe Steinbach's father is a very wealthy man. He owns a company that imports feathers. Now, you wouldn't believe that, would you? He owns a company that imports feathers. And at that time, we're talking about 1945, there was very few companies in the United States that imported feathers. These were not chicken feathers. These were fancy feathers out of big animals, that had feathers. He imported feathers, and he made a ton of money. There was a very few people that did that. Okay, so this guy's father owned the place. And he had a building down on 12th and Delmar in St. Louis, but he had an empty store, top store of his factory for leathers. And he had a son named Joseph, and Joseph didn't like the feather business. Feather, I meant, not leather, feather. So anyway, this Mr. Steinbach had a lot of influence in this city. So I don't know how my dad met him. He said to my dad, I got a son, Joseph. He's not happy. First place, you don't want to be in business with his father. Secondly, he doesn't like the leather business. So he said to my dad, I'll tell you what I want you to do. I'm going to outfit you a plant that will make women's bags, purses, pocketbooks. And he said, I have a contact with a company called Edison Brothers Shoe Company. They're one of the biggest in the world. Edison Brothers, you don't know them, but she worked for them a few times. But that was a big company, and they made women's shoes. But they wanted to start a company that would make purses that matched their shoes. My dad's a man. So he gets him a factory and gets him every Monday morning. A guy would show up at my dad's place, and he would have $50,000 worth of orders for matching women's bags. Wasn't that something? Just happened to be there. So it went on and on and on and on, and he makes bags, and every Monday morning this bag comes in. That goes on for 5-6 years, and they make beautiful products. Boy, I mean, my dad's the head supervisor. So anyway, that goes on for about 5 or 6 years, and then, as everything happens, when you get everything set up and you think you're sitting on top, down you go. So what happened was, Edison Brothers decided that my father was making too much money. Yeah. So they went to New York. Edison Brothers did. And they went around in these little neighborhoods. Maybe you're not familiar with New York, but they used to have people who worked in their homes. They'd have a sewing machine, and they'd make 20 bags a day or whatever the hell it was. So Edison Brothers hired all these people in their homes to work on these bags. So what happened was, they were turning these bags out so cheaper than my dad could make them. So Edison Brothers isn't stupid. They said they're not going to give him the contracts anymore. I remember they charged them $36 a dozen, $3 a piece.